Welcome to the series of talks about the agricultural lending marketplace HeavyFinance. Hi, we are here today with Marijus Andrijauskas. Marijus, thank you so much for receiving us here today.
Pleasure.
And allowing us to do the interviews from your headquarters. Marijus is a partner in the recently created FirstPick VC fund. Before FirstPick, Marijus was with Startup Wise Guys when they first invested in HeavyFinance in the early stages. So, Marijus, you have been in the center of the startup scene in Vilnius for the past years. How did you arrive here?
Yeah, I think so. That my entire career was as an entrepreneur, as a founder. Several startups. Even right after university, I had the chance to be in the U.S. to see how the ecosystem looks there. It's back 2005, 2010, in between. So it was super early days in Lithuania by that day. So no one was calling business a startup and so on. So I seen a huge evolvement, and the growth of Lithuania market, the Baltic ecosystem overall. And I'm really proud being there, So we definitely can talk more about this, what's been, 15 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, and even now, that we have, thousands of startups, tens of the VCs and, enormous private people, business angels of the network, and super interesting startups like yours, like HeavyFinance, that we are proud to work with.
Thank you. So actually, let me ask you, because I will take that cue and ask you, is it different to be an investor after you were a founder of a startup? Or do you feel that this doesn't really affect you much?
Well, I think there is a difference. It's hard for me, to compare when I was already being a founder. I never been in consulting business. I never been, this very pure financial banking, or corporate investor and so on. So I've been an entrepreneur myself. So that's why I am always looking more from the founder's perspective, from the challenges the meeting I've been myself in, That's why I always have this chemistry with the founders and more like ambassador trying to be. But now being on the other side of the table, it's also an interesting school for me, as well, what it means is VC world. So I think now, being with the FirstPick, with our new fund, with our, team partners that we're building, we're actually trying to be more startup-ish than this a classic VC. So that's a big advantage for us. And that's how I see, it's actually working, to be in between the founders and ecosystem. We have a huge support, this chemistry, the feeling, the speed, adaptiveness, insightful, things. And
I want to get back to that in a bit, because actually those are very interesting points.
Absolutely.
And I want to expand on that a bit in a moment. But first,
yes,
let's talk a little bit about FirstPick, because this is something very, very recent. And I know that you started FirstPick VC funds with your friends, partners.
Right.
Not long time ago. How was this process? Why did you decide to create FirstPick VC?
So back 3-4 years ago, we been the part of the Startup Wise Guys. The startup accelerators in the Baltic, well-known brand, and we're doing, a great job together and investing in a great teams, and build a great portfolio together. But we invested entire fund. And that's how it's working in the VC world. And the new fundraising started. And we as a team, the local team from Lithuania, all the partners here, Dmitry, Yone, Andre, and me, decided to create a new fund, the FirstPick. So we raised. We had a huge support from our ecosystem and community.
And
we're super proud that we launched this new fund. And yeah, this is a new journey. So very exciting about it.
I'm also curious. So what happens to companies like HeavyFinance that were in Startup Wise Guys portfolio, and now you're moving to FirstPick? What happened to companies like us?
Well, you climb to a mountain, we're going back with a pillow, like it should be. Not a big change, The entire portfolio is taken here with the same, partners, with the same entire team, and yeah, we working together on a daily basis, like we're doing even now, talking about the HeavyFinance, our portfolio company. So yeah, this is the entire community. We're too small in Lithuania, we're too small in the Baltics. We think about it globally. So it's a matter, for us, it's a new step, it's a new journey. But if we think, from a portfolio companies, it's the same. Yeah.
I think you guys deserve all the best success, and you have a really elite team here.
Thank you very much.
Partners.
Thank you very much. It's it means a lot. It means a lot.
Actually, something that impressed me when I first arrived in Lithuania 7 years ago, it's that Lithuanians have this hunger to build. There's an entrepreneurial spirit, embedded deep in the society, and Lithuanians are really not afraid of new technologies. Actually, what I see is that they are keen and they want to embrace it in their new businesses, right? Do you agree with that? Do you think that this is something that makes Lithuania different from other landscapes in the world?
Absolutely. There is saying that in a startup world, overall in a startup, there is this formula 3H. That the founder team should be, the hipster, the hacker, and the hustler. I deeply believe, that Lithuanians are the real hustlers. And it's historically, if we see, from 800s, what happened in Lithuania historically, and what we've been through this, so that's how it's appeared in our blood. We're really hustlers, and yes, and now for the recent 7 years, that's actually a good matter. 7 years, because even in Lithuania, we can say that our ecosystem is basically 10 years. The first VC funds appeared 10 years ago. We had tens of startups. Now we have thousands of startups, like in Lithuania, thousands of startups in the Baltics, and I believe it's because of ability to be the real hustler, of the hunger that you want to be a global, they want to be, successful, and you're working hard 24/7. It's not enough, and you're doing, a job, and it's actually really, important skill to be a founder and building a startup, being a hustler. Yeah,
that's actually impressive. Specifically considering the size of Lithuania, because Lithuania is not so big. So having this amount of startups, and actually during all this period, you collected a large number of companies in your portfolio, right? What is the first thing that you find in a company? What is that key factor that convinces you to invest in a company?
Well, it may sound as a cliche, but definitely the people, the founders, As we just talked, being a hustler, it's a super important skill, for a founder. And of course, we looking primarily, especially as early stage investor, as accelerator, and this is very important when it comes, to situations. There is a lot of pressure, there's a lot of changes, uncertainty, and it's
very dynamic.
Yeah, very dynamic. So being the founder who can actually have those skills, it's super important. And on top, definitely, we're seeing, the idea, the problem you're trying to solve, the market size, how adaptive is the market, how actually educated is the market, if the market needs to be educated, how much it may cost, And as you said, the Lithuania, the Baltics, a tiny market when it comes, to Europe, when it comes to US market, Asia market, right? So ability to insight how big it can be, the problem that you're solving, it's a very, very important skill, for a founder. And the chemistry in between, that's the primary criteria we're trying to pick up, the teams that we're trying to collaborate and enter into this serious collaborationship,
So is this actually important for you when you pick a company, when you pick a startup to invest in? Having this international hunger, this will to expand outside of Lithuania, is this a key factor for you?
I would say absolutely, but I want to scare no others. So yes, if you're building the company, sustainable, profitable company, it's okay that you're building this. You don't need to build a startup from day one, and I'm saying, if you're building a classic business, it's all right. You can be a profitable business in Lithuania, in the Baltics, in being the multi-local, not like global company, but multi-local, opening branches, and it's all right to be. But if you actually want to become a successful startup, to build a multi-billion worth companies, then you definitely need to become a global company, right? We have, 12, 13, upcoming 14, 15 unicorns in the Baltics. Like we have 2 unicorns in Lithuania, just 2 unicorns in Lithuania, and I'm pretty sure we're talking about 2, 3 more unicorns upcoming 2, 3 years here in Lithuania, and all of those companies doing global business. That's why it's not only about the ambition being global, but it's actually, about
normal growth.
Yes, it's a normal growth, that you need to be there, because we're talking about, Baltics, Lithuania, tiny countries here, yeah.
And in your experience, in the companies that you manage in your portfolio, what are the main challenges that the company faces when they are crossing the borders?
Different challenges, I would say, So by picking different countries where you're entering, that's one of the most important parts, Typically we're thinking, well, US or Europe, right? And one of the main challenge, what we're actually seeing, that's saying, well, I'll pick Europe in the beginning, for example, right? Because it's a kind of similar amount of the, businesses when it comes
to
to
your backyard.
Yeah. It's closer because of time difference and so on. But actually, the Europe is, I think, a bit different and way challenging to enter than sometimes even in the US, because we have different countries that even competing to each other. Let's say, Germany, France, UK, they're competing to each other, right? It's not like one Europe as a one unit. Different, languages, different mentality, and so on and so on. But once you enter into, to the, for example, Germany, you can become multi-local, right? Like a great examples of we have, for example, Vinted, right? The France, German, you're becoming actually number one player in this country. And then, seeing how the model is working, you're going to another country. While you're entering in the US, it's actually
the whole country at the same
you're
time.
entering entire, competition level. You're entering, it's like competition kicking you right in the face, and it's actually the amount of the money you're starting to spend is ridiculously different than actually entering, for example, into Germany or France and so on. So yeah, this is something that you really need to consider when you're thinking.
So what you're telling me, if you start with Europe to expand, you have the opportunity to do it gradually, right? You don't have to right away. You can test the markets, spend some money, and then move to another market, correct your mistakes. Is that something possible?
It's doable.
It's doable.
It's doable. Yeah.
Okay, so let me go back to the beginning of our conversation now.
Okay.
Because now I'm curious about what is your approach when you invest in a company? We were talking about creating this chemistry with the founders. So when you invest in a company, what is your approach? Do you try to create a close bond, mentor them closely, or do you give them the space, give them money, the tools, and say, now fly? Do you give them the space? How do you prefer? How do you feel more comfortable?
No space. No. We're talking about acceleration here. Yeah.
Right?
We're talking about acceleration. We've been there. We've been ourselves entrepreneurs, so we know how speed is important. And I think there is two terms I really like to put on the table when you're talking about scale and growth. And we're seeing the startups are coming, to us and saying, hey, I need, the capital to scale my business. And you're saying, wait a minute, what are you going to scale? What actually you're going to scale? Because in my understanding, that first of all, you need to build something that grows, and then to repeat it. That actually, you're scaling what actually working on a growth level. And you can try in a smaller countries, in other countries, just picking some country, like, Portugal, right? And if it's working, and if it's actually growing, then you may scale something that's actually growing. If you're entering in the German market, if you're entering the Poland market, it's a huge market. It's not
different concepts.
Yeah, definitely. And you're building something that works on a growth level and then on scale. And getting back to your level, to your question, I would say, that we're looking to those companies, that coming to accelerator are okay with a little bit of this pressure, a healthy pressure that we are participating ourselves in, and we're collaborating with founders. We argue, our mentors coming in, we are talking about strategy, then we're trying, to say the strategy is shit, then we are rebuilding the strategy and actually becoming something that want to validate on the markets. Then we're putting together money, the burning them, trying to understand what worked, what didn't work, and actually after that, we feel that we're ready into something next level, And the next level may be different round, maybe different, expansion plan, the growth plans, etc., etc. Sometimes even the pivoting, or it may not work as well.
So each case is each case, right?
Absolutely.
But do you feel that there are common challenges for any startup to survive and flourish? Challenges that could be common to every startup when they are trying to make it, and they need to survive, and then after surviving, they need to grow. What are those challenges?
The first probably main challenge that every startup is meeting it's actually realizing that your customer is actually not willing to buy a product, you know? And the presumptions that you're putting on the list, the presumptions that you actually talk with a close network or, you know, friends that they say, that's a cool idea, you should do this, you know? That's the first slap in the face, you know, that they're meeting. And this is what's happening. And when you're actually realizing that this is the reality that you need to face, and sometimes, you know, turn the product into different phase, you know, talking to a bigger quantity of the, you know, potential customers, and being patient, you know, building your startup. This is, I would say, you know, most of the cases that the first challenge the startups are meeting, you know, because everything is about the sales. We can talk about super nice ideas, we can talk about super cool people, you know, we can talk about super nice technology, but at the end of the day, it's the sales that's winning, you know, the traction, the numbers, if you're moving forward, right?
So how do you measure these KPIs, actually? What do you expect in terms of KPIs in the first stages of a startup?
Yeah, so as we're early stage investor, you know, of course we're talking about this traction, but traction not necessarily is the sales per se in the early days. We are really focusing in the beginning something that you can, either you build community, you know, either you have build the, you know, early bird users database who are waiting for a product. Something that validates, some downloads, you know,
Market
some
fit,
pre-orders.
proof of concept.
Yeah, absolutely. Something that actually, you know, shows that one day it can be monetized, converted to real customers, and we are happy to move to this line and actually, you know, to try to convert to paying customers and to proceed with this journey, to proceed, you know, with the next round funding that, as I said, you know, convert into something that grows and later you can scale.
So also you invest in almost all verticals, or do you have any restrictions about verticals when it comes to startups?
We love fintech, you know. We love fintech like HeavyFinance. We're absolutely believers in the fintech, you know, and I believe that overall Lithuania is a fintech hub. Yeah, it's great to be fintech in Lithuania. We have talent, we have regulation, we have, you know, absolutely all necessary tools that we need, you know, for being a fintech here. So that's why we are really happy, you know, to focus on a fintech. In the meantime, we see some transition in Lithuania, that more and more startups coming from a deep tech. So we diving as well more deeper to understanding the deep tech, collaborating more with the universities, you know, very involved into this process. And I would say that, yeah, our focus is fintech, but I would say that despite the fact that we love B2B as well, more looking into B2C, the part of this, or mixed part, and everything that is as add-on, fintech driven, you know, it's great for us.
So since you're fintech driven, when you looked into HeavyFinance the first time, do you remember what convinced you to invest in HeavyFinance?
Absolutely, yes, of course. You know, you can't forget, you know, these first days when you're meeting the founders, yeah, definitely. I think you can't forget, you know, the founders who are the second-time founders or serial entrepreneurs, I would say, you know, because they are straight to the point. You know, they know what they're building. They're super insightful. They are big visionaries, and they actually know why they come to you. And I do remember, you know, our conversation with the Limonas and the team, you know, that they come in and they say, all right, so we got this. Actually, we invited them, you know, so it was a great conversation about what the HeavyFinance is going to become, you know. For us, it was the new thing. It's another great part of being on a VC side, when actually meeting the founders and you learning from that. You know, it's a great school. It's a great school actually to be on this part, because you're learning from the founders. You know, the same with the HeavyFinance. It was, you know, something so big, you know, that we learned about, you know, overall this vertical where the HeavyFinance is going in, about the business model, and we start to dive deeper to understanding, learning about the competition, learning about the opportunity, and it was instant yes. We deeply believed, you know, in what the team is going to build, and that's why I was still supporting the team here. Yeah,
it is amazing. Very interesting perspective that you gave there. So you invest not only your money, but you invest also your attention, your time into learning new businesses, new business models, new tech. Do you also see yourself investing your time and looking into different financial products, like fintech markets, like HeavyFinance?
Me personally?
Yes, you personally.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. That's the beauty thing, when I was talking about this educational part, when you're meeting the founders and actually you're finding the opportunities. Personally, you're finding the opportunities. So, absolutely, 2-3 years ago, my knowledge, about the platforms such as HeavyFinance was, below the average, I would say this. Now, when, I'm seeing, it's always when you invest in your personal, assets, you're thinking about the risk tolerance and the return. That's how it's worked, right? And when you're standing, the risk tolerance actually, on the vertical side, and the returns, that's the instant yes. Yes, by understanding the vertical, then understanding the HeavyFinance business model, the risk tolerance, and the returns, and of course talking about similar platforms, I do picking it as the right way of the personal investments.
Nice. So actually, what do you find special about HeavyFinance as a fintech market?
We always think that fintech, everything when it comes, those neobanks and the traditional banks in a bit different way. That's how it's all started. Actually, the fintech overall industry started, how we can change the traditional bank thinking. But now, what we're thinking about the fintech, that you can pick the traditional vertical that never thought about anyone, right, and actually drive it into fintech startup and so on. So the HeavyFinance model, that we're taking, agriculture, the farmers who actually was forgotten for the last 5-10 years, overall, as industry was living on a European level, on the subsidiary level, and being, the small farmer, absolutely, it's a different challenge, and actually deciding to change the way, how they can actually grow, to be funded and in a fast way, and this is super exciting. And knowing how huge is potential of this vector, that gives, absolutely no doubts to proceeding with the HeavyFinance, and where to go and where it can lead, So that's why we're big believers and supporters of that.
Beautiful, thank you. So let me ask you also about with the current international circumstances. There's a lot of talk of VC pullback, not so much investment in the markets. Do you feel that is true?
Oh wow, I'm probably not popular here with my thinking, but we can feel it. But from my point of view, my personal point of view, I think there is a lot of noise that actually doing more damage than it's actually the reality. And we are talking today with you that recently, just 2 days ago, we heard news about Adam Neumann, right, and Andreessen Horowitz, investment, 350 million, right? So what I can say about this, about the pullbacks, I think the VC world is absolutely pure math. If you are in a 30 billion fund, like Andreessen Horowitz, right, and you need to return to your investors 20%, annual return, we're talking about 6 billion. And then you're picking the investments, that actually return you this month. So I think the funds who raise the money already from the investors, they sure are more, secure, picky, but there is no such as pullback. There is more like pause, that already been some pause, and I'm pretty sure that's going to get back to a normal, because this is pure math. Once you already raised, there is no commitments on the returns, and actually that's how doing the math. You're investing for the math. Because if there is absolutely pullbacks, there is drops in valuation, and it's coming, to the same way, dropping, there is a huge risk on the return of the fund, So I believe, that there is the pullback more like a pause that's going to get back to normal pretty soon.
So do you believe that the only consequence that this will bring is that VCs will be more picky, they'll be looking more in depth into the projects that they're investing into, the startups they're investing in, or are there other consequences that will come out from this circumstance that we're living now?
As I said, the noise are doing probably bigger damage. It's absolutely going to be more challenging, to traditional VCs to raise the money, and probably we're already seeing this, what's going on the market. But I think for the great startups, for the great founders, there is always going to be, a great investor waiting for them. So pickiness, yes. More time, more no blind list. Let's go. Here's a ticket. More due diligence, more analysis. But I'm pretty sure that the right startups, right founders always find the capital.
So let me ask you, now entering the final phase of this interview, what is your advice for wannabe entrepreneurs, for recent founders, new startups? What is your advice for them?
Just do it, So it's more me as an entrepreneur talking here, but I would say, even what we see in Lithuania, what we see in the Baltics, why our the market is evolving, why our ecosystem is evolving, because actually, when the capital arrived in the Baltics, in Lithuania, we have about 20-30 operating VCs and investors locally, and hundreds already of the venture capital firms that already invested at least once in the Baltics. The startups are no more competing to each other. So they started to sharing knowledge. And this is why you should really consider becoming, a first-time founder, entrepreneur, even you don't have the knowledge at the moment.
You will learn it.
Yes, you will learn it.
From your networking, right?
Absolutely, from the network, from the ecosystem, from the early stage investors. Just do it, become the founder, learn, at least learn, is it for you or not, So that would be my biggest advice, for the founders who are actually considering, just do it. Yeah.
That's beautiful. So imagine I'm a future founder. I heard about FirstPick now with this interview, and I want to find you guys. You guys are actively looking for new companies for your portfolio at the moment?
Yes, so we do. Please apply, to FirstPick.vc. Our new, accelerations programs are coming in October, and pre-accelerator in November. So we're having, a real great program, a real great mentors, looking for the fintechs, deep techs as well, and the great founders. So apply, we're waiting, and we are happy, to work together.
Great. Thank you so much. I really appreciate this moment, Marijus.
Thank you.
And once again, me and all the HeavyFinance team, we wish you the best success with FirstPick. You guys deserve it. This is an elite team. And thank you so much for all the support.
Thank you for inviting. Let's do it together.